Hi everyone, I want to talk about a really cool subject today, and that is numbers, probabilities, and statistics. And if I do not mess up this video when I say the word statistics, that will be improbable. But before I go much further, I want you to know I got my second vaccine today. I do care about COVID, I do think it's serious, and I do think we should follow precautions. But that being said, I am going to go into the first relevant example of how people fool you with these things, with numbers and with probabilities and with statistics. So the way that happens with COVID is they put this big number on the screen. Over 500,000 people have died in the United States from COVID. Now, I'm not saying that's not a lot, that number isn't a high number. I don't even close to know that many people. But why am I saying then that it's not that big of a deal? Well, that's because there's 328 million people in this country. So in comparison to the total population, it's actually not as serious as you might think. And let me try to say some things to kind of bring it more down to a human level. At a human level, we tend to think of big numbers like 500,000 as unimaginable because there's not 500,000 of anything that we have in our life, not anywhere close. But just because as one human that's a big number doesn't mean in the grand scheme of things it is. And the only way to figure that out is by running the numbers. So if 500,000 people have died and we have 328 million, and let's say we're approaching 1 million, that is the nightmare, right? Is that we will have 1 million Americans dead. And that is why this is a big deal. Okay, so let's just say we reach that 1 million. That's 1 out of 328. If you went to each one of the people that you know and asked them to guess a number between 0 and 320, or 1 and 328, let's say 1 and 328, and they guessed, how many of them do you think would have said 312? Likelihood is none of them, including yourself. And that is part of the reason that you don't know anyone who's died from COVID. And I'm sorry if you do, by the way, I'm very sorry. But I have, a lot of people ask me, well, if COVID is so serious, why don't I know anyone who's died of it? In fact, I don't know anyone who knows someone that's died of it. So I'm actually going to get more into that too. So based on my YouTube statistics, I know that you are likely in the younger age group watching this. Well, it turns out more than half of the people that have died from COVID are over the age of 75, or 75 and over, I believe it actually is. So you probably don't know that many people over the age of 75, and you probably don't have much of a network of people that are 75 and older if you are in your 20s, or even in your 30s, or even in your 40s or 50s. So that doesn't mean you don't know anyone. You may know 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 or 4 people that are that age, and their numbers are much worse. But as far as you go, your chances are even less than the 1 out of 650 is where we are, around 1 out of 650. I'm rounding a little bit there. And then it gets to be even less, considering that your numbers are even lower in your age group. And so the chances of you actually having died or knowing someone that died, you think about all your friends perhaps when you hear that big number and you think, who am I going to lose? Well, if you're younger, the chances are nobody. Honestly, it's nobody. In fact, I believe that your chances are well less than 1 in 1,000. And that is something that when we're afraid of something, 1 in 1,000 still kind of sounds like a lot. But if you were going to go to buy lottery tickets and there was one that said 1 in 1,000 wins $100, would that entice you at all? Would you even start to think that you're going to be that 1 in 1,000? That's something that we do as people. We tend to think in the negative things that worry us. Oh man, it's going to be me. I know it. I'm special. It's going to be me. Oh no. But when it comes to something good happening to us, we think, yeah, no way I'm that lucky. So that is kind of why when you watch the news, they are not lying to you. I want to say that they are not lying to you. they're just not giving you the full picture because it doesn't really fit. It's not going to keep you scared and keep you watching. And I think a lot of it is altruistic, that it is actually bad that 500,000 people have died of this. So they want you to be worried about it. They want you to be taking those precautions. And they probably don't feel bad about misleading you a little bit. But in truth, they're not lying. They're just not giving you all of the numbers. When they put that death counter up, they don't do it as a fraction. Because if they did, it might not look as serious, especially if you did it as a percentage. It might look really tiny, which it is. It is. It's not even 1%. So basically, I guess that's what I'm getting at. They're using numbers to, I don't want to say manipulate you, but it is manipulating you. Maybe for better, maybe for worse. But this is why it's good to learn this stuff. And a few ways that you can learn it is taking classes in college. So for me, I'm an IT major, but I think any tech major has a good shot at this. If you're more on the business side, classes like economics, macro and micro, statistics is a class that I think pretty much everyone will take. And if you have a good professor, they will tell you a lot of this stuff too. And then the one I did that was the biggest one that taught me weird stuff like this is actually cryptography, because probability is very involved in cryptography to kind of a scary level. It almost scares you about the world, especially in how little our intuition resembles what actually happens when you run the numbers. But the math doesn't lie, and the examples don't either. So I'm going to give you a really cool example. Say you're in a room with 23 other people. Let's say you and 22 other people. You and 23 total. If you include yourself, what do you think the chances are that there are 2 people in that room that have the exact same birthday? I say birthday, I'm not including the year. I just mean you celebrate your birthday at the same time. You might think that's really unlikely. Like, your birthday's special. The idea that somebody, there's a good chance that somebody else is having that same darn exact birthday, that seems pretty unlikely, right? What if I told you it's more likely than not that there are 2 people in that room of 23 people, including yourself, that have the same birthday? I had a really good professor that taught us this by actually doing it by example. There was around 30 people in that class, which pushes the chances up to around 70%. And he would just do it, not knowing any of our birthdays. He would just write them all out on the board, kind of graph them. He got halfway through the class before someone had the same birthday as me. That was a weird moment. But for me, it could be a little bit misleading emotionally because it made it seem more true than it is. So what you have to remember is that it's not actually about you. As people, we tend to think about ourselves, and we think about our view of the world and what we can see. So we think about our birthday a lot of times. But the truth is, all we're saying is there are 2 people, neither of them have to be you, that have the same birthday. So if you think about it, 22 times 23, you can't have the same birthday as yourself. Obviously, that'd be cheating. And then you just say, with all those comparisons, are any of the dates the same? And there's only 365 days in a year. So of course, you're above 50% at that point. Now, 23% or 23 people, it will almost not happen as much as it does. Just a little bit more likely that it will. You get up to 30, you'd be good to bet money that there will be 2 people in that room with the same birthday. And 30 people in a room, up until recently, didn't seem like a whole lot of people. So that is how, statistics and math, numbers, probability, it can all be so cool. And I recommend, if you're doing a technical degree or any other degree, to go into this and try to pick a good professor. Go on Rate My Professor and find the guy or girl that has the good ratings, the ones that keep it interesting, because these classes can be very boring if a professor makes them. But if you take real world examples like these and then you do the math, it's a whole lot of fun. And you start to realize that you can't just look at the world and think of it as you see it and feel it, because we're humans, we're not robots, we don't think in math, and a lot of times that is how we become misled. And if you want to be able to prevent that from happening to you in both big and little ways, take these classes. Now, I want to end by saying, I totally think that COVID's a big deal, okay? I know I just made it sound like it wasn't. It is. It's just not as big of a deal as the news wants you to think it is. Have a good night.